Welcome to the SJ Child Show. This episode is sponsored by Water and Body Basics. Visit 3440 South, 5600 West, West Valley City, Utah. Mention SJ Childs today.
Hi, and welcome to the SJ Childs Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today I have a special guest, Mary DiCaro. Woohoo! I said it right. And she is here today to talk about her practice, to talk about her book, and really to share some very valuable information for all of you wonderful listeners. So let's just get started. Hi, Mary. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah. I really very, very appreciative to be here today. Thank you.
We're honored to have you. And I am really excited to jump right in and talk about the topic we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to let you kind of get started. Introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and tell us about your book.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a physical therapist by trade. I've been practicing physical therapy for about 33 years now, so a long time. Over the years, I've also kind of added to my experiences by becoming a personal trainer, a strength and conditioning specialist, and then recently studying health and wellness coaching and functional medicine. And for those that don't know, functional medicine is the looking at the body as a whole system. So looking at root causes and not just looking at symptoms and then trying to remediate the symptoms, but actually looking at the reasons for the symptoms. So it's actually delving in a little bit deeper to find out the why, not just the what. So that's been kind of really my focus over the last couple of years, combining nutrition and lifestyle with physical therapy to try to help as many people as I can that I see out there that are dealing with a lot of different ailments, whether they be chronic pain, headaches, even things like that are mental, emotional, like depression, anxiety, insomnia, that are related to the body systems and the body as a whole. And we can't just separate out the pieces. So that's what I've been doing. My book is really based on a lot of those principles and also just my experiences in physical therapy over the years and treating the patients that I've treated. I use a lot of stories and anecdotal stories in my book and also my own experiences. My own experiences were a lot of physical ailments over the years that the traditional medical model really wasn't able to help me with. So that's kind of why I started my quest for answers, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like to dive deep into things, and I'm kind of analytical and I like to read. So I kind of gravitated to figuring out why this was happening. And it got me started in looking at the mind-body connection and also just how nutrition affects our body, every single cell of our body. It looks at, all sorts of things from sleep, lifestyle issues, how we manage stress. Those are the kinds of things that I'm really focusing on now more than anything. And of course, I still take care of the physical problem that the person has, but I'm looking at the whole person at this point.
That's so important. You and I align on so many mindsets and values. And I'm so excited about that because we can really delve deep into some great conversations. I completely agree that it's the whole picture that everybody needs to take a look at. And of course, people know that I like to speak about neurological issues and inflammations and things like that are all a part of what we're going to discuss today. So it's very exciting. I love that you wanted to kind of find your own answers. And so you did your own research. You and I are so much alike like that. I do the same exact thing. I'm big into researching things. I was a medical paralegal. And so researching things is just, I love to do it. And you just gain so much more insight, and you're really able to, when you have the intention like this, find your own answers.
Right. That's so true. And, sometimes you need a catalyst. Like sometimes, something happens in your life that you are like, now, okay, pushed to do that. And that's okay. I mean, that's how we learn and that's how we grow. It's usually not, we don't grow out from periods of comfort.
True.
We don't grow from periods when everything's going well. We grow from those challenges and from those crises and those chaotic moments that really push us to the precipice of figuring out what's happening here. What can I do? And how can I make a difference?
And how funny that we probably strive to be comfortable. And that's probably what we shouldn't be striving for, right? We should be striving for the discomfort of ultimate changing and reinventing and regrowing constantly.
For sure.
I just love that. Where is your practice based out of?
So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. So I actually live in a suburb, Peoria, Arizona, and that's where my practice is. I go to clinics. I also work out of my home. I have a little area in my home that I treat from. I see people from all over too, from across the country. So I do Zoom meetings and I do consults as well. And I can't do the hands-on part, but I can do the coaching and I can do the the educational pieces that I can provide.
Yeah. And those parts are really, really important too, because having a coach or having someone to be able to trust, to lean on, to ask those questions, you can provide your own physical, fitness plans or whatever. You can help people, guide them through that. And so that's really great. And you're going to laugh. I just realized you sent me questions and I looked at them and then I set them down. So I don't have them in front of me. So I apologize that we're not following suit to anything that you had planned previously, probably.
That's totally okay.
Heavens, Sarah. It just goes right along with it. Let's talk about start early. Let's talk about babies and kids. What type of wellness plan or advice do you give to people for those that genre of age?
So the important piece is the things that sometimes you'll talk about in your books, is that being aware, self-aware of what are you feeling in your body. A lot of times emotions, our parents unknowingly didn't do this on purpose, but they kind of caused us to push our emotions down. Like,
yes.
You shouldn't feel that way, or, toughen up, or, whatever the verbiage was. But again, the child might learn to not really express their feelings correctly, or they might push it down and then it might come out sideways, come out differently. Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing is to make the child really comfortable with feeling an emotion and expressing it in a positive way and modeling that behavior.
Yeah.
The second thing I think is really important, and that's the mind piece. And the mind is a really, really big piece, as you'll see in my book. That's the mind piece. The second piece is to take care of the physical body and to teach that early on, to teach them that it's really important that you do move your body every day, that you don't want to sit in front of the TV a lot. You want to get up and move, and you want to stretch. You want to instill that love of movement and exercise. It might not be a sport. Not every child is built for a sport or capable of that or even wants to do that. But just to make them appreciate moving their body and getting out there and exercising. And just making it fun, making it entertaining and fun. The third thing I would say is to really drill into their head the importance of nutrition, and diet. And a lot of times we neglect that because we're just kind of really busy moms, and we don't really provide the education that this is going to help you with this, like this type of food helps your brain, or this type of food helps your muscles, and potato chips really don't help any of those things, so let's try to redirect. And, not that every child is going to have a perfect diet. It's far from it. My children never did and still don't. But again, you want to try to at least provide the information that they can use. And it might not stick right now, but maybe down the road when they're adults, they're going to appreciate that knowledge that hey, this is what a balanced meal looks like. This is what it should look like on my plate. At least those kind of things.
Yeah. And I really like that you said that too, because it's not just when you're a kid, you have to eat this and you have to eat that. I kind of joke in my autism community in my groups with my son that, he has his whole life to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, I'm not so concerned with him having one before the age of something, right? Like, he has his whole life. And right now we deal with the challenges that we have. Like, if he starts to become unhealthy in nutrition, we'll deal with that when that comes, right? So now we're just dealing with the other challenges or whatever, daily things that we have to do. But I really like that you said that, because it is lifelong. Like, you do need to take a look at it, but at the same time, you can do it at any time in your life. You don't have to start when you're little. You should, but if you do start when you're a teen, what does that look like?
Sure. And most people don't even start until they're an adult, until they have some sort of their own health crises. And they're like, okay, well, I need to take a look at this. And, that was kind of more me. I did not have a very good diet for many, many years. I was kind of sustaining myself on, carbohydrates, simple carbs, not even good carbs. So a lot of sugar and a lot of carbs. And so it kind of just didn't sit well with me. My body didn't like that. And it was trying to tell me over the years, and it just wasn't something I was paying attention to.
Yeah.
Again, not really cluing into your body's signals, which many of us ignore a lot. And, just how does this make me feel? It doesn't make me feel good physically. Maybe it doesn't make me feel good mentally. I might feel sluggish. I might feel tired. I might feel down, whatever. It has different repercussions in everybody. But, the food that we eat is the messengers for our body cells. Basically, this is what builds our cells. This is what nurtures our cells or not. And so if we're not providing those nutrients to kind of build the body up and to kind of sustain us in terms of all the different functions our bodies has to do every day, we're gonna eventually start feeling kind of crummy. So that kind of was what happened to me. And I just had to take a hard look at it. And that's when I started studying nutrition. And I changed my entire diet. And it was hard, believe me. It's not easy at all to give up, the way I was eating and switch it and shift it completely, totally different. So it isn't. And it doesn't happen for everybody the same way. And some people won't start it until they're adults.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. It is kind of when people go into crisis that they then start to formulate a plan, right? A crisis plan and get out of crisis. And so that's so interesting that you said that. What about water? What do you tell people about water?
Water,
such a big thing, right?
It's a huge thing. And I talk about that in my book under the nutrition, food is medicine in my book. So water, hydration is huge. I mean, our muscles, our joints, our cartilages, even our brain is like anywhere between 60 and 80% water. And so if we're chronically dehydrated, which many people are and don't know it, I mean, there's not a whole lot of symptoms you don't get the thirst right away. You don't get the dry mouth and the thirst. It's not something that your body signals right away. But you should be drinking, about half your body weight in ounces every single day. So it's a lot of water. And people are like, well, geez, I would be in the bathroom all the time. And that is probably true initially until your body adjusts. Yeah. But you're flushing out a lot of toxins and metabolites that you just don't want to have hanging around. It just removes a lot of it detoxes you. Yeah, it detoxes you, and it provides medium for which all of these metabolic reactions really actually need to take place. Yeah.
We have a water wellness center near us in our home. So we go there for our water, and it's been about 5 years now. And one of both my kids, I mean, that's pretty much the only thing they'll drink is water. And it's fantastic. They're just, I love that we've instilled that so important. Like you said, I wish that we would have had a little bit more encouragement in those areas, but it's kind of a recurring theme with everyone that I talk to in the same, the older generation where, they poor guys.
We drink everything but water. I mean, and then the water we drank was from the hose,
Yeah, exactly.
We would drink lemonade and soda and, it's just about anything other than water. And so you really start to appreciate, at least I do. My daughter's like, I don't like the taste of water. Water has no taste. Put a little lemon in it or something.
Yeah.
So again, it really hydrates your tissues. If you're having muscle stiffness or if your joints are achy, it could be your body's trying to tell you need to drink a little bit more water.
Definitely. I agree with that. What about our older, or how about we'll go to moms, maybe even just moms that are prenatal moms and, postnatal. What type of nutrition and stuff should they be looking at?
So super important for prenatal moms. Again, I don't focus on a lot of pregnancy type diets, but I do provide information on what a core diet would be from the Functional Medicine Institute. So basically a core diet is consisting of course, you just want to eat whole foods, which means that the food is as natural and as close to its natural source as possible. Yeah. So, you're going to eat proteins. You're going to eat a lot of protein to build up the all of the muscle and the bone, in the child. Again, your body needs it, and it's going to deplete it from you unless you provide it. It's going to deplete all of your minerals from your body unless you provide it. So you want to have a diet that includes a lot of green leafy vegetables with a lot of nice nutrients in it, micronutrients, as well as all of your basic nutrients. A nice protein source that's clean, something that might be like, like a clean, organic chicken or turkey, or even a little piece of beef for the iron is important. Again, the way it is sourced is important. You don't, basically our bodies are going to use the materials that we give it. And so if we're going to take materials that are like, say you're going to purchase just really cheap meat, like you're going to go to McDonald's and you're going to buy a hamburger patty and you're going to eat just the hamburger patty. So now, not to knock that once in a while, that's fine. I'm just saying that the source of the beef is not the greatest because they're not fed the greatest food. They're given GMO corn. They're given grains that are not healthy, that really produce inflammation in the body. So you want to just look at the source of your food, and you want to be as clean as possible. Just try to go as clean as possible as far as how it was sourced. If it's hopefully locally grown, your vegetables and your fruits, I would stay away from anything that's, fried, anything that especially that has any sort of inflammatory oils that were fried in soy oil or corn oil, soybean oil. Those are highly inflammatory oils, and they do damage our cell membranes. And they mess up the communication with our neurons because our neurons connect and they message each other and they converse with each other through their cell membranes. So anything that messes up the cell membrane, because it's those inflammatory oils, is going to break up those signals. So you want to stay away from the inflammatory oils, the processed oils and processed foods, because it's going to have lots of those types of oils in them. And then, of course, stay away from your high sugar, because there's a lot of women that will get gestational diabetes because they're taking in a lot more calories than they normally do to provide for the baby, but also their bodies, their insulin production can't keep up. And so they basically will start to have, higher than normal insulin, which insulin as a hormone is inflammatory. So you want to keep your sugars somewhat consistent. You don't want to eat a lot of sweets, but you want to have natural sugars. You want to have your fruits and things like that. And so, I would just advocate a really clean whole foods diet without a lot of processed foods, anything out of a bag or a box, anything like that. You want to try to keep to a minimum. Yeah. And just provide the baby with all the building blocks it's going to need, amino acids and all the nutrients it's going to need to really develop healthy. Yeah,
definitely. I find kind of a good trick for that is not going into the aisles. When I stay on the outside of the aisles and I shop around the aisles, I can get all the healthy stuff I need, right? And it's all in those aisles, the boxes and bags and boxes and more. And and we do that a lot. We're eating vegetarian for a long time, and then we were eating just organic, have been for the last probably 4 to 5 years. So and I mean, we've, of course, it's not a perfection or anything. Yes, we have fried food sometimes that we shouldn't have, and we pay for it the next day or the days later,
your body
whatever. Yeah, definitely. We definitely know. But I really like that. And I think that's an important diet for anyone, but especially definitely for that. I agree. And I love that. That was just a wonderful description of everything that you should be intaking for certainly.
Yes.
What about our older generation, 40 and up, kind of getting into that, starting to have physical pains? And once again, the bad I word, that inflammation, right? There's nobody says the bad I word.
I know.
So that's interesting. But inflammation really causes so many things in our bodies that we, a lot of people, adults, aren't aware of that is happening. So let's talk about some of those things for our older listeners.
Yes. And that's predominantly who I see over 35 and 40, when people are starting to feel the effects of their age, quote unquote, which I hate to say. But again, it's a cumulative thing over the years. So a lot of times when people go to the doctor, they'll get their labs every year, annual, and they'll say everything looks normal. However, there's normal and there's optimal. Okay. So they're never going to tell you where you really should be. Functional medicine looks at optimal, and the general medical practice might look at normal range. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times symptoms don't develop until something's been brewing for many years. So a lot of times inflammation's been present, systemic inflammation, full body inflammation has been present for many years, and people are just unaware of it. There's no symptoms. It's a silent killer. That's why they call it the silent killer. Yeah. It's responsible for about 70 to 80% of all chronic disease, from Alzheimer's disease, all neurodegenerative diseases, to cancers, to, all kinds of things, heart disease, coronary artery disease. So it really is implicated as either a direct cause or an indirect cause of probably, I would say, up to 90% of all diseases. So we can control a lot of that. And the biggest factor and let me distinguish here, inflammation, when somebody like cuts their finger or sprains their ankle and you see the redness and the swelling, that's an acute inflammation response. And that generally leads to healing. That's normal. The inflammation we're talking about here is a chronic systemic low-grade inflammation that is kind of provides us with no clues whatsoever until there's a diagnosis that we get. We end up getting that label, that diagnosis, diabetes or heart disease. So the inflammation that's going on within our cells is really primarily contributed to by, there's several different factors that I talk about in my book, but the primary one, the driver of inflammation, is food. What we're taking into our bodies.
Blood flow, right? Into that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, it affects the inner lining of our blood cells. So it does affect blood. It affects our blood flow to our brain, to our heart, everywhere. So the endothelial lining, the little cell lining in our blood vessels, becomes inflamed. And that's where a lot of the blockages and the arteriosclerosis begins, is because of that inflammation in the vessels. And so the inflammation is kind of stealth. It's silent. You don't really get many clues ahead of time, but, just know that food is a huge source of inflammation. It comes from not only what we're eating, but how it's grown. Many of our foods are grown with kind of not so good agricultural practices, lots of pesticides, herbicides.
Bad soil.
Depleted soils. And there's all kinds of factors going on in our agriculture now that are not really the best for us. So we just have to kind of be really educated buyers in terms of where we're shopping and what we're putting into our bodies, because that's really the key is what sort of food are you putting into your body, and is it creating inflammation or is it helping to quell inflammation? And there are foods that are anti-inflammatory, just as there are foods that are highly inflammatory. So we have to kind of like move towards the anti-inflammatory diet, which is a lot of times, just to kind of summarize, is sort of a Mediterranean diet. Where you're eating a lot of fresh seafood, fish. If you've ever been to Greece or Italy, you know what they sustain themselves on.
But I'd love to.
It's pretty amazing.
I'm saying we're moving there for health, but I'm my new excuse, right?
That would be a fabulous reason to go. It's a beautiful country. But so they eat a lot of plant foods. They eat a lot of seeds and nuts, healthy oils. They stay away from any processed foods and oils. You don't really see a lot of that at all out there. You see a lot of healthy meats, cows that are grazing on natural grasses in the wild. You see some fish, a lot of seafood, being in the Mediterranean. So it's a very, very diverse diet that includes all your food groups, but it's not processed at all. It's got healthy oils, healthy protein sources, just a different way of eating. Not a lot of grains, some grains, whole grains, but the grains there are a little bit different the way they're grown. Up until just recently, I don't think they allowed any sort of genetically modified grains, which is a big problem here in the United States. I think that has changed though, but I think they are now, unfortunately, allowing some of that there. But so the end result is that you're going to be reducing your inflammation. And with that, you're going to be reducing your risk for all of these diseases that we tend to associate with getting older, but necessarily not so much, because it's really what we do, the things that we can control in our lifespan that really leads to a better health span, so that we can enjoy health longer. So that when we get to our 80s, hopefully, that we will be healthy and we can still be active, and we're not going to be dealing with years of debilitation and years of being, losing our function and cognition and all of that stuff.
It just made me think of a little thing right here when you said that, because my grandfather's 94 and he's so spry. He loves to just do everything. So work in his yard and build things, and he likes to learn a lot. So he's constantly reading and challenging. He's probably listening now these days, but just reading. But, I love that he's just always using everything. He's always moving. He's always thinking. He's always using all of it. And he is, will say that he hasn't had a cold or flu in like 50 plus years. And his secret to life, I love it. His secret is saline. His secret is that salt water that he just gargles and, inhale, just has a little bit of salt water each day. and cashews, I think was the other
Oh,
thing.
wow.
He really uses, crushes them up and uses cashew paste for a lot of things. But yeah, I think that that's really interesting that, that you can learn from people that have been healthy for so long and have these fulfilled lives, so just kind of a
So
cool
it
little
sounds like
thing I
he's
thought
doing
about.
all the right things, which is
Yeah.
amazing. And that he still has the motivation to do all the right things. A lot of people, as they get older, they're just like, oh, what the heck,
I
So-
foresee him going another 5 to 10 years at least.
Yeah,
At his
good.
rate.
That's
It's
awesome.
amazing. Yeah, it's really cool. What a great guy. But yeah, I think that that's so important. And I think that you said it just right. Like the secret to aging well and to aging and living long and healthy is your food, and is your food is medicine. I couldn't agree with you more. And it is like the building blocks of our healthy choices and our lifestyle choices that we should be making.
Right.
And
yeah,
you'll be proud to know that neither of my children have been to McDonald's in their life.
That's great.
Yes.
It's amazing. I wish I could have said the same. I didn't know as much then.
No, me neither. Me neither. I'm certainly not as but when we think about it, and we think now we have two people in the world who haven't had, yes, they've had goldfish out of the bag. And yes, they've had, ice cream cones and things like that. But the not unprocessed, the super processed, and the, ultimately chemical based foods that they're providing for this quick access is something that they won't ever have to worry about, building a body who can digest that, because yuck, that's not what we want.
Yeah, we're just not genetically adapted to be eating the food like substances. They're not.
Exactly.
It's not food. It's stuff that will fill us up.
That you said that,
but we're not really genetically adapted to do that. And so, our bodies will tell us that we're going to end up with illnesses. We're going to end up with nutrient deficiencies. We're going to end up with symptoms, and then the symptoms will be diagnosed as a certain condition. But again, food is primary. And I would say probably the second biggest contributor to inflammation is, I would say, the mind body, the stress connection. Stress is huge for pushing us over the inflammatory markers. And so, and when we're under stress, we pump out cortisol, and cortisol will basically cause our blood sugars to get elevated, pump out insulin. Those are all inflammatory for our body. And the other piece that I want to connect to the food is the gut health, because our gut health, in functional medicine, we believe that the gut is the cornerstone of wellness, and that everything pretty much begins in the gut. And when I say the gut, I mean the intestinal wall. There's normally a barrier function of the gut, which acts as almost like a cheesecloth, which kind of keeps out the bad stuff and just lets out the nutrients into the bloodstream. When we're eating like non-foods, like the things we talked about, the processed foods and the inflammatory foods, and even sometimes, people have said gluten is a huge problem for everybody, not just people with celiac, because what it does is it causes those tight junctions, that barrier function of the gut, to be compromised, and we end up with something called leaky gut. And leaky gut essentially is when the intestinal permeability increases. So in other words, now not just the nutrients are getting through, but now these undigested proteins are getting through.
Those little proteins.
Yes, they do. They sneak out. And then what they do is they turn on your immune system. Your immune system are like, well, wait a minute, what's this? This isn't supposed to be here. So then you have an immune reaction to that. And a lot of times people don't even recognize that they might be sensitive to a food, or a food's not agreeing with them. And they don't know that this is happening in the body. They don't know when their gut is starting to allow all this stuff into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. Even bacteria, all sorts of things that are not supposed to be there are getting out. So basically, when you're eating foods that are not real foods, and you're eating a lot of processed foods, and then you combine that with stress, because stress also increases gut permeability, you have a disaster forming, basically.
Certainly.
You have an inflammatory reaction that's going to go out of control. You're going to have a lot of immune type responses going on in the body that can range anywhere from headaches to digestive upsets to rashes in the skin to depression.
Depression. I was just going to say depression. Yeah, exactly.
Cognition issues, exactly. Memory issues. So it's the brain gut connection. You have an enteric nervous system, and it's your second brain is in your gut. That's where you produce a lot of your neurotransmitters. Probably 80% of your serotonin is produced in the gut, which is your feel-good hormone. Yeah. So a lot of people don't associate the food they're eating with their mood, but they really should, because again, your gut is so important, because it's like the like I said, the cornerstone of everything else. Like whatever affects the gut is going to affect the entire body. It's going to affect the brain. It's going to affect everything. Yeah. So it's going to be what stays in the, what you eat is not going to always stay in the gut. You have to keep considering the fact that you want to provide healthy foods that are going to keep those tight junctions functioning, so that you don't get that leaky gut. You don't upset your microbiome, which is your healthy gut flora, right? Your healthy gut flora is dependent on what you eat. They eat what you eat. They're supposed to be there, and they're there to protect you. And your immune system is in your gut. 70% of it is. So if you're not feeding good food to your microbiome, you're going to get a lot of unhealthy bacterial overgrowth, and that's a whole nother issue. You know? So we can go on and on about how
certainly can.
The food affects everything. It really does.
Well, and I'll share with listeners, this is a great conversation to have with them, that in our family, for my own experience, I'm not a medical professional, and I'll share this experience with you because it was anecdotal, like you said, just the same way. And that when my son was diagnosed with autism about a decade ago, there was a lot less information available then and resources. But one of the things that I had come across was a gluten dairy-free diet choice to make that could reduce some of the symptoms that were causing him discomfort. And of course, that was great that this doctor would tell me on a website to do this. That's fantastic. However, me being my researchy little self decided, why would this be happening? Why could this have, what's in the casein and what's in the gluten? Why would it be causing this? So I did months of research, and in my own research found the proteins of casein and gluten to be the inflammatory, ties that were causing him discomfort, and not only discomfort, but blocked neuropaths, not being able to speak. And when we removed those, the casein and the gluten, his life functions improved 75%, I would say. He started speaking. Wow. He became verbal after almost 4 years of being nonverbal. He also stopped his physical stimming, so many things, flapping, spinning, humming, constantly plunging himself into things, which I now know were probably to reduce the source of inflammation in his gut. And, watching all of these symptoms happening, and people think they're behaviors. They think they're behaviors that he's having when they're really symptoms of what's going on in his body. And I'm so glad that I was aware enough to understand that and to get the research. And so, I agree. Those sneaky little proteins can wreak havoc in our bodies.
They're antigens. So the body recognizes them as foreign invaders. And so they're going to attack them. And then you're going to have a situation where you're going to have a snowball effect of a lot of neuroinflammation. The neuroinflammation in the brain, as well as the central nervous system. The brain and the central nervous system communicate with the gut all day long, every minute. There's a constant bidirectional pathway that the brain and the gut function through. And a lot of it is, like you say, people look at it as behaviors, but it's actually symptoms that they're trying to relieve, or the body is just doing what it can do to relieve those symptoms. And I applaud you for taking the time to really research that, because a lot of people, it's a difficult thing to do. It's very, very difficult to make changes in a child's diet, especially a child that is only eating selective foods and they're very picky. Children my son was an extremely picky eater.
I wouldn't like his diet now, Mary. But he'll eat a sandwich in his life, I promise. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So it's difficult. And I mean, I couldn't get my son to eat one green food ever. I mean, I still can't.
Exactly.
So, anyhow,
the vitamin gummies where we can.
you have to pick your battles. But again, you really sound like you've taken a lot of time and energy, and that is amazing, because again, what little pieces you can do. I'm not saying that it's going to change everything, but it's going to help. And maybe those little things will help just even 25% or 50%. It's a puzzle piece that we all have to put together for ourselves.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. I love the way you said that. It really is. It's for everyone. Everybody needs to figure out their own, puzzle, their own piece of what fits for you and what doesn't fit. And it's through trial and error. Unfortunately, it's just through trial and error that we go through these things. So learn from our mistakes and become wiser, right?
Yeah, we're all
for today.
we're biochemically unique. None of us are the same. We all have different fingerprints. We all have different genetic footprints, so we have to kind of just tune into our bodies, figure out what works, trial and error, like you said. I mean, sometimes that's all it is.
Exactly. I love that this has been a really fantastic conversation. I want to talk more about your book and find out, let's go over the title, let's talk about it, and let's tell everybody where they can find it.
Okay. So the book is called Staying Healthy, Living Longer. And
Wonderful.
It is 7 powerful principles for a healthier you. And essentially, it was 3 years of research and writing on and off. It wasn't continuous writing, but I took breaks, I'll be honest. So anyway, it was through my own experiences, my own personal trials with my own health, my experiences with my patients, and then also just everything I've learned over the years in nutrition, wellness, and functional medicine. So it really combines a lot of information. A lot of my healthcare professionals are saying, it's a good resource, and it is very detailed. Most people, I'd say 99% of people will be able to read it and understand it. I've tried to put it into a format that is easy to understand, as much technicality is in there. There's, talk about pretty much anything from arthritis to osteoporosis to Alzheimer's to, what all the different things inflammation can do. And then what tools we can use that are very simple. They may not be easy for everybody because change is difficult. But again, I go through even how you can adopt changes more easily through your using your mind.
That's so important.
And basically, it's just adopting these simple tools that you can use every single day that will turn the trajectory in your favor in terms of moving towards wellness, moving away from disease, and taking care of yourself. So it's really a way of aging better. And I'd say the sooner the better you start. I mean, kids are not going to be interested in this, but it's certainly something like if you're in your 30s and you really want to do what you can to prevent disease, especially if you have a family history of a certain kind of disease in your family. Like in my house, it was diabetes and cardiac coronary artery disease, heart disease. So I had to really take steps because I was moving in the direction that I didn't want to see myself going, and I was able to reverse it. And so a lot of this stuff is reversible. It's available on Amazon. It's also available at Barnes & Noble through barnesandnoble.com and in a few select stores locally. I have it through indie publishers, so it's also in local bookstores. So you can go to any place that sells books and they can order it for you.
Nice. So. That's wonderful. And do you have a website?
Yes, I do. My website is mdtherapyandwellness.com. mdtherapyandwellness.com.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure to have all those links in the description. Staying healthy, living longer. Get your copy today so that you can do just that. We really, really had such a great conversation. Mary, you provided us with so much valuable information. I mean, at the end of this, we should all have a much better diet, a much better plan of fitness, not even exercise, just getting out there, take a walk. We play sometimes we do like scavenger hunts or something. And so when we're on our walks, whoever finds a blue rock first or whoever finds and it just really keeps everybody involved and wanting to do it. So little things, tips to help keep families having fun, right?
That's right. Trying to make it fun initially, and then they'll get used to the feeling that, hey, it feels good to move, it feels good to exercise. I get a lot of that energy, that stress and energy can be moving out of our body, not to mention it helps with everything else. So
yeah. And like you said, this book, it might not be for kids, but guess what, adults? It's for you. And guess how you're going to teach those kids? By modeling correct behaviors. So let's get on it. Let's get on it for sure. Thank you so much for being here today, Mary. I really appreciate talking to you, and we will be staying in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. Anytime. I really enjoyed. Thank you.